Today I want to go over 7 steps that you can increase your cash flow for your digital marketing agency. Look, your cash flow is one of the most important things in order to make sure you're successful, to make sure you're even alive and your agency is thriving. And today I'm going to go over that. Hey, I'm Jason Swank, and I ran an agency for 12 years working with clients like Lotus Cars and Aflac and Coca-Cola and all these big brands. And we're even been doing an agency for the past 11 months that's grown to 8 figures. And one of the things that I've always realized, when we started growing, was cash flow was king. And on today's episode, we're going to get into that right now. So step 1 in increasing your cash flow is raising your prices. I see too many agencies not charging enough, and they're just charging a fee, just kind of making it up. Making sure that you're constantly raising your prices and looking at the value that you're actually delivering is key. If you constantly, I have a way to tell if you're not charging enough. If you're constantly saying, I'm too busy, that's a telltale sign that you're not charging enough. So raise your prices. Number 2 on increasing cash flow is making sure you put systems in place in order to maintain scope creep. Now with scope creep, you have a statement of work and your client comes to you asking for more work. And you have to have a process in place for eliminating most of scope creep. It could be having a $0 change order. So when the client comes to you for something small, which normally we just say, yeah, it's something small, we'll go do, and they don't know it's out of scope, but send them a change order and say, hey, look, I'll zero it out. Here's what we're going to do, and have them sign it. So it trains your clients to understand, oh, that's out of scope. So then when they come to you for the big items, then you can say, hey, this is out of scope. And they're like, okay, rather than if you say yes all the time, they're training you and you're going to have a harder time protecting your scope creep. Number 3, measure everybody's time. I know this is hard, and it was hard for me. And it was hard for me until this happened. I was like, well, let me just try to track time. And then what I realized, I was losing money on 60% of our engagements. I was just lucky enough that we're charging enough for the other 40%. But when I realized this, I was like, oh my gosh, we need to track our time in order to figure out what should our pricing be? What could we not go below so we can increase our cash flow? Because how many times do you get to a point where you're like, man, we brought in so much business, but I don't feel like we have much money in the account? That's what you need to do. Number 4, improve efficiencies. Just because you're charging someone X doesn't mean you have to spend an X amount of hours on it. If you can improve your efficiencies and actually streamline it, the more profit, the more cash that you're actually going to make. Number 5, review your vendors' terms. See how you can extend out payment terms for them. Look, when we work with Coca-Cola or Aflac, they kind of beat up vendors. I'm not talking about beating up vendors, but make it fair. But they had 60, sometimes 90, 120 days accounts payable, right? So think about how can you extend out those payment terms to your vendors so you have more cash flow to play with. Number 6, and this is a big one, change your payment terms. I remember we used to charge, and this is what most agencies charge if you're doing a project engagement. You'll charge 50% up front, 50% at the end. Well, what happens is we're always waiting on our clients, and they're never, getting you the stuff you need at the time that you need it. And so for the project you thought you would finish in 6 months turned out to be 2 years. So you don't get that 50%, even if you're at 95%. So change your payment terms, maybe something like 50% up front, quarter halfway through, or at a certain date, whichever comes first, and same thing at the end. So then you're paid 100%, even if you're waiting on the client. Now, if you're doing monthly recurring, or like if you're doing retainer work or something on a monthly recurring basis, you should always get paid up front for that. Don't get paid after that month, because they'll be like, oh yeah, checks in the mail, checks in the mail, checks in the mail. And then you've done 4 months worth of work and you're never going to get paid. Number 7, this is cash flow forecasting and really figuring out looking at your bank account, looking at your accounts receivable, look at your pipeline with the stages that are about to close, looking at all those different variables and really coming up with projections to look at how far out will our cash last. Look at those expenses, look at all the money actually coming in, and then you can be like, okay, in 4 months, we're going to run into trouble. So now we have a good runway in order to make those adjustments rather than looking at your bank account and going, oh my gosh, I can't make payroll. And I tell you that and laughing out loud because that's happened to me. Now, I've always was able to make payroll, but we came really close to not. But then what we started doing is doing all of these 7 things, and it fixed almost all of our issues. Now, you still probably have some issues, but it will make things so much easier and it will increase your cash flow. And here's a bonus one too. Make sure you get a line of credit, even if you don't need it. A line of credit is not a long-term loan. It's just something to get you by, especially if someone doesn't pay you and you're trying to get through this right now, and maybe you haven't changed your contract terms or your payment terms, your vendor terms, or any of the things that we just discussed. Get a line of credit. It will help you out because when you need it, you won't be able to get it. So get it now. So if you like this episode, make sure you subscribe, hit that little bell button so you never miss out on an episode. If you want to dive more into this, you should probably check out the agency playbook. So if you go to our website, jasonswank.com/playbook, request an invite. Those are 8 systems that can really help you and grow your agency faster. And until next time, have a swank day.